Hi, everyone. My name is Brian with the Scientist in Every Florida School program. And in this edition of Science Segments, I'm excited to connect you with a scientist to help you learn about sustainability. Who are you and what is your title?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Brian, for having me. My name is Mysha Clarke. I am a new assistant professor in the School of Forest Resources and Conservation at the University of Florida. I grew up in Jamaica, finished my PhD at Purdue in forestry and natural resources. So overall, I classify myself as a natural resources social scientist, meaning I study the human aspect of how we manage natural resources.
What exactly do you research and why is your research important?
Great question. I researched many things. But for the most part, right now, my research focuses again on forest management, specifically looking at invasive species. So my previous work looked at invasive plants in forest systems and how people manage them. So that's how the human side comes in, is we have a lot of forest resources, right? But within the United States, most of that forest resources are privately owned, meaning that families, individuals own those forest lands. So if we want to conserve it and use it sustainably, we have to also engage with those landowners. And so that was a part of my research, partly working with the Forest Service, right, funded by the Forest Service to look at how we manage forest resources and how can we motivate landowners to conserve those resources. So more specifically, long story, we study invasive plants and how family forest landowners manage invasive species on their property. And invasive plants are plants that are introduced, right? So they're not native to an ecosystem, but when they're introduced, they can cause a lot of damage to that ecosystem, right? By or competing with native species, they can change the chemistry of the soil, etc. So it's really important to manage these species. So that's one of my projects. The other project is working with urban forestry. And urban forests are basically trees or forest patches within an urban area. So it could be a city, for example, like Gainesville or Miami, etc. And so this current research is looking at how we manage urban forests, how can we better engage the community with using urban forests, especially historically underserved communities. Yeah, and also looking at how urban forests can help to promote food resilience in cities and address things like climate change.
Can you please explain how experts predict the impact of individuals on environmental systems?
Great question. That one's a little bit tough to answer because there are so many different ways that experts can do that. But for me, particularly as a social scientist, one of the ways we do that is really by talking to people, right? So in predicting people's impact on the environment, right? That's one of the most direct ways is to get that information is through doing different types of social science data collection methods. So in my work, for example, we collect what is known as qualitative data. So those are more, for example, anecdotal, including things like interviews and focus groups. And we also use quantitative methods like surveys. So if you've ever done a survey before, right, that's how we also collect data. And so that's one of the ways that in my field, we predict how people might impact the environment. So for example, the project with invasive species, right, we do a survey, a statewide survey of landowners, right, asking them how they manage their forests, what do they plan to do in the future, how can we help them, what are some of their challenges. So really, that's one of the other sides of sustainability, is the social aspect, which is where we work directly with humans, right, and how they address these issues.
Thank you, Dr. Clarke, and thank you all so much for watching. We will see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.